Okay, just imagine for a second. What if we could hit a giant reset button on the entire internet? I'm not talking about building a new app or something small. I mean completely redesigning our digital world from the absolute ground up. Well, today we're going to dive into a plan that's trying to do exactly that.
And really, it all kicks off with that one powerful question. Because this isn't about making a few little tweaks here and there. Nope. This is about a complete and total overhaul of our digital lives, rewriting the fundamental rules of how we connect, how we do business, and even how we trust each other online.
All right, so here's the game plan for how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll tackle the why, the big mission driving this whole thing. Then we'll get into the how, the nitty-gritty of the plan to actually build this new web. We're also going to look at the wild, futuristic shield they're creating to protect it, the very real, very human challenges they're up against, and then we'll wrap it all up with a big question that's going to stick with you.
Okay, let's jump right into that mission. I mean, where does an idea this huge even start? Well, this wasn't cooked up in some corporate boardroom. It's actually a direct response to a feeling that's kind of in the air all around us right now.
Yeah, it really comes from this growing sense that, our traditional institutions just aren't working like they used to. A lot of us feel like we're losing control, right? Losing control over our own futures, our own security. And that one feeling right there, that's the launch pad for this entire project.
So the whole point here, the really crucial part, is that this technology is being put forward as the solution to that loss of trust. The entire goal is to give people the tools they need to build a future where they can finally feel secure and, actually be in the driver's seat of their own lives.
All right, so we've got the why. Now let's dig into the how. How in the world do you actually build a whole new digital world? Well, the key, according to this plan, is a pretty radical shift in thinking, a total break from how the internet works today.
And this slide just perfectly explains that shift. Think about it. The old internet is basically a bunch of feudal kingdoms, right? They're all isolated, they've got these high walls around them, and they're all fighting over the same stuff. But this new vision, it's more like a network of bustling, vibrant cities. Each one is independent, sure, but they all grow and succeed because of open trade, open communication, and shared resources. It's a total flip from competition to collaboration.
So how do they actually pull this off? Well, the key technology is something called modular blockchains. But honestly, just think of them as digital Lego blocks. It's a perfect analogy. Instead of every single developer having to invent their own pieces from scratch, which is crazy, right? They get a ready-made kit of proven, secure parts to build with. And what that means is way faster, way more secure development for everybody involved.
So, if you're a developer, what does this Lego block approach actually look like in practice? Well, it's an absolute game changer. You start with a rock-solid, secure base. Then you get to choose your own custom rules. You add whatever features you need, and then, and this is the magic part, you are instantly connected to the entire network from the second you launch. You're basically skipping years of painstaking work and all those security nightmares.
But look, building something that's meant to last, it's not just about solving today's problems, right? You have to look ahead. You have to anticipate the threats of tomorrow. And there is a monster of a threat on the horizon for, all of modern cryptography, quantum computing. And just to be clear, this is not science fiction. We're talking about DARPA here. That's the Pentagon's top research agency. They have a very real, very clear timeline. They've actually pinpointed the year 2033 as the moment when a quantum computer could be powerful enough to shatter the digital security that protects literally everything. Our banks, our private messages, even national security. The clock is officially ticking. So the question becomes, how do you defend against a threat that isn't even fully here yet? The answer is something called post-quantum cryptography. They're using this incredibly strong defense known as lattice-based cryptography to build a totally quantum-proof network, and they're doing it way ahead of that 2033 deadline. And the goal here isn't just to protect themselves, it's to build a security fortress so strong that it can be a shield for other critical systems out there, like Bitcoin, for example.
Okay, so you've got this amazing, future-proof technology. Awesome. But what good is any of that if no one actually uses it? And that brings us to the biggest hurdles of all. And they're not technical, they're human. The first one is simple. How do you get this stuff into the hands of billions of regular people?
And the problem is summed up perfectly with this analogy. Trying to use these decentralized services today, it's kind of like using a cell phone before the iPhone came along. Sure, it technically works, but it's complicated, it's clunky, it's not fun. And all that friction, that's the giant wall holding back what could be a tidal wave of new users.
I mean, just look at the data from a key partner like the Brave browser. It makes it crystal clear. A staggering 88% of their users, they know nothing about crypto. Nothing. So what does that tell you? It tells you there is a massive, untapped audience out there just waiting for someone to give them a simpler way in.
And we're talking about a huge audience here. We're talking about nearly 100 million people. That's practically a digital nation just waiting on the sidelines, ready to jump in. If, and it's a big if, someone can finally open the gate with an entry point that's simple, that's intuitive, and that's secure.
But getting people to use it is only one of the human challenges. The other big one is governance. I mean, when you build a decentralized system, you're basically running a massive human experiment in how people work together and solve problems, and a real-world test of this came up recently when the project had to deal with some pretty serious public accusations.
So, what happened? What did they do? Well, they brought in a fully independent firm to do a forensic audit. We're talking a massive deep dive, a 128-page report, 18 formal interviews, the whole shebang. And the conclusion? It was decisive. None of the 5 big accusations were substantiated. But honestly, the key takeaway here isn't just the result, it's the process. It's how they did it. This whole thing became a blueprint for how a system with no boss can handle a major crisis with complete and total transparency.
But that whole crisis also shined a huge spotlight on the great paradox of being decentralized. See, the very thing that makes a system like this so strong, the fact that there's no central leader, that's also its Achilles heel. When you don't have a CEO who can just make a final decision, trying to get thousands of people to agree on a path forward, well, it can be a monumental and sometimes an excruciatingly slow process.
So after all that, where does this leave us? We've walked through the whole thing. The mission born out of a crisis of trust, the Lego block technology designed for collaboration, and those huge human challenges of getting people to use it and agree on things. This is the blueprint for a new digital world, but it's important to remember it's not set in stone.
And that, right there, is maybe the most crucial point of all. This idea of rebuilding our digital world, it isn't some far-off, maybe one-day possibility. It is happening, right now. The foundations are literally being laid as we speak.
Which brings us to the final and honestly the most important question of all. The real question isn't if this new world is going to be built. It is. The real question is who is going to build it? Who are the architects going to be? And even more importantly, what values are they going to bake into its very foundations? Because the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's being written right now.